Hello, today we're going to be talking about the Good Boy Gone Bad music video by TXT, the Japanese version. And before we jump into this, I have another question for you guys. Me and my friend were sort of debating about what was actually going on here. What is this bag that Yeonjun is stealing? What is it? Why was it there? It's clearly not just like someone's purse. Like, it has like it has a lot of money, endless money if you ask me. They throw it out in a lot of different places and there's still some more in there. Like, who just has endless money lying around, you know what I mean? So my original assumption was that this was one of those bags they take to bring and refill ATMs, because ATMs have to be refilled by something, right? I'm thinking of like Groundhog Day. Phil walks up and he just takes the bag of money from there, gonna like refill probably ATMs. That's what I'm kind of picturing. It's the same type of bag. But my friend was like, no. This is clearly a bag that a criminal was using. They were laundering money, and then Yeonjun stole the criminal's bag. Criminals! So it's like, was it dirty money, or was it simply refill money? Take your pick. Hi everyone, my name is Lena and welcome back to my channel. I am a hype theorist. If you've never been here before, I make a ton of videos and theories on hype and do reactions to all of their content related to story stuff, and some stuff that's maybe not related to story stuff. The Japanese version of Good Boy Gone Bad has some undeniable connections to previous music videos. It's got ties to Loser Lover in terms of scenario and visual. It has ties to 0 by 1 equals Love Song, again, in terms of visuals. And they're basically back to their hair colors from the Runaway era. That last one may have been a coincidence, though. But what if it's not? Anyways, because of this tie to past videos, there's no reason to think that they won't affect future videos as well. It relates to the past, it'll probably also relate to the future. And I don't necessarily just mean there's more to the story that is going to be added on, because that's possible too. I mean, like, it actually is already showing us things that might happen in the future. Anyways, looking at the videos I just mentioned, you're probably like, ah yes, none of these videos are Starseekers videos. None of them have the label Starseekers or the early label TXT Universe. None of them have that. And yet, Lena, you have claimed that this will tell you the future of the Starseekers universe. So what's up with that? Well, first, it's actually because of how parallel it is to this story. So as I said before, these are actually technically like two different stories. There is the Starseeker story, and then there's this alternate story that is being covered in this music video. Of course, the Starseeker story is the one that we see in the webtoon, in the web novel that's on Wattpad, and of course in very famous music videos like Magic Island and Eternally. They have this base setting of TXT are idols who learn to use magic, and they travel between our world and the magic world, Magic Island, and they are the boys of destiny who are meant to eventually save the world. Kind of. That was extremely simplistic. But then there's music videos like this one, which seem a little bit more grounded in reality. There's potentially hints of magic, like if you look at Runaway, you can interpret that, as magic. Blue Hour, it could be their magic, or it could be imagination, like the song lyrics suggest. And that kind of does tie into what we see at the end of Loser Lover, which I'll get into in a little bit. So there's like hints of magic, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's actual magic. It's certainly not so focused on it. Instead, it has like an ongoing narrative that features personal relationships, personal growth, and in this music video, an amalgamation of past mistakes causing today's consequences. In order to understand everything in this music video, there are a few things that you need to understand about past music videos in this alternate timeline universe thing. The non-Starseekers timeline. I need a name for this. If you have a name idea for what we can call the non-Starseekers timeline, alternate timeline, please suggest it. And once we understand the past and present, then I can sort of dive into why I think this tells us about the future of the Starseekers story. Let's go. The girl. The first thing I'm going to say here is that this girl, their romantic interests, their girlfriends, are meant to be a representation of us. Moa. You. They have actually confirmed this previously in a live during the Loser Lover era, and again recently, Taeyeon confirmed it on Weverse. I just wanted to completely show proof of this because on my reaction a couple people were telling me, I don't think that's Moa, and I just wanted to come with receipts and be like, actually, they did say it is supposed to be Moa, so Yeah. Anyways, so previously in Loser Lover, Moa was seen with each of the boys during those scenes. This is kind of like set up for this music video. They are doing like, adventures together. Adventures isn't really the right word, but yeah. She was waiting in the car when Youngjun stole the money from the ATMs. She ran away with Subin when the restaurant owner was chasing them. Kai saved her from the guy who was harassing her in the restaurant. She was commenting on Bomgyu's live under the name Moa, and she was hanging out with Taein, even changing the writing on his cast to say lover instead of loser. Something that, by the way, Taein continues to have kind of in this video, the lover as a title. But it's not in cast form, so take what you will from that information. There are some interesting things to note about her and Taein, though, specifically surrounding a promise. In several shots in this music video, she is seen with a ring on. That same ring is shown later in the music video in a sink as if it's being washed away, like someone took it off and doesn't care for it anymore. Also, this ring is specifically worn on the fourth finger, which usually means that it's tied to a romantic promise, especially when it's on the left hand, which it is. And in the Korean version of Good Boy Gone Bad, Taeyeon is seen stepping on a ring box, indicating that, yeah, this promise was broken. By the way, the Korean version of this, I do think comes kind of like after this moment. We're seeing them kill their good boy selves, and then in Good Boy Gone Bad, that's them burying it because they're already dead and they've become bad boys. So I do think that it's meant to come after the events of this music video, and it just slightly alludes to the events of it. Anyways, Moa, in this case, is just sort of portraying the idea of a person who showed them love once, and later is also the cause of all their anguish as they move from childhood to adulthood. I don't think it's meant to show that they're being two-timed by the same girl specifically or anything like that. More that just in general there was a breach of trust through a very trusted person in their life. Even when they tried to believe that there wasn't, they actually do try to believe in her, I think, which I will explain in the next section. But I also want to talk about her clothing too, because it's surprisingly important here. Actually, I shouldn't say surprising. Everything's not surprising. It's hype. In the flashback scenes, for the most part, she is wearing a blue kind of checkered dress, blue and white. Here, she's still pure and innocent in terms of the story. She clearly disagrees with Yeonjun's actions, and that's kind of why she leaves him. In terms of the other boys, though, it's a little bit less clear, but with Taeyeon, she still is wearing these pure colors, and they're all happy memories. And in Subin's flashback of her right at the end of this music video, she's still wearing this blue color. In the Starseeker story, Moa is seen as kind of a blue ghost, even though she's wearing a white dress. And even in the description of the web novel, it's kind of described as a warm, minty blue light that has like a comforting feel. This is a reference directly to that. However, when she comes to talk to Kai, she's already wearing a black cardigan, as if the blue is already starting to become the black color. Because in the opening scene of this music video, she's wearing all black, as if there's a transition from the soft, pure, innocent blue and white kind of dress into the black dress that we see at the end when she betrays them. I assume that this scene with Kai is where she comes to break up with him, seeing as she's already been kind of half blackened. And I'm using the term blackening here as a metaphorical thing. And by the way, this scene, I'll talk about it a tiny bit more, but Kai is watching the fish here, which is the same sort of reference to Yeonjun doing the same thing in 0 by 1 Love Song, and the whole scene kind of encapsulates the idea of loneliness. So, bonus points for this being about the breakup. By the way, the fish that Kai sees in the sky is also a betta fish, which you cannot put with others, especially if it's like other males, because they will fight each other literally to the death. So they have to be kept alone. So, yes, loneliness. Anyways, so she is darkening over time. And again, as I mentioned in that opening scene, which chronologically does actually happen, obviously, after all these flashbacks, she is turning them into the police. She dials the number for the police in Korea, and this betrayal, like I said, is spelled out in black clothing, symbolically telling us that yes, she too becomes dark. And it is the trigger for TXT to do the same. By the way, if you're liking this video so far, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so that you'll see not only the past and present videos, but also my future videos as well. But yeah, speaking of the past and present, let's talk about that in relation to this music video. The past and present. So, as I explained before, understanding the previous music videos is the key to understanding this one. I did make full videos talking about these music videos in the past, but I'm not gonna go make you watch them all to get the information. I mean, unless you want to watch it first. So as I briefly mentioned before, Loser Lover shows Moa with the boys during their adventures. But that wasn't the only significance of Loser Lover. One of the main lines highlights the key themes for Loser Lover. A lover with a $sign is a loser. Those who put money over love are losers. Hence the $sign and with the S. However, more of those themes in that music video showed us how our capitalistic society means that we often have to choose money. You can't just live without money the way you did once, maybe while you were a child. You didn't have to worry about it then. Your parents hopefully took care of it. Money is something you have to have as an adult and something that you have to address. So in a way, we're all losers. You don't really have a choice. We have to play the game. But how you play the game is what really matters here. In several of the flashbacks for this music video, we see Moa arguing with Yeonjun after he stole the money. We don't know the exact conversation, obviously, but the general idea is there. Likely, Moa is unhappy with how Yeonjun decided to get this capital, stole this money, and then she cuts it off with him. The same can be shown with Subin, who has the photo and clearly is upset because she cut things off. He is holding the laptop that we saw in Loser Lover, so I guess it's his laptop, even though we were the ones seeing it. We saw Bitcoin on it. There was like a decreasing price of Bitcoin, so I don't know, maybe she's upset that the price is going down. Maybe she disagreed with the acquiring of the Bitcoin. I don't know, something like that was a no. We can assume to a degree that might have something to do with it. As for why Moa left the others, it's a little bit less clear. Beomgyu's computer, which we assume he was streaming on, is seen kind of smashed, and he's clutching his phone as if perhaps maybe Moa texted him, since he seemed to usually communicate with Moa through messages maybe. She does actually have a conversation with Kai, to which we don't see the outcome, but it's almost certainly after the Yeonjun situation, since she's already wearing a black cardigan, so she's starting to turn to the darker self. Taehyun, however, we don't actually see her having any kind of conversation with him about this, and he seems to be the one who clings most tightly to their promise, so maybe she never got around to it before the events of the video. One of the interesting things here, though, is that Moa does actually really seem to care about money. Previous interactions, like with Subin, show that this is something that she was focused on. For example, she was the one looking at the Bitcoin when she met up with Subin. So yeah, this is something that she was focused on. And when we see her at the beginning of this music video, she has piles of money there. Either she's already helped herself to the money that Yeonjun stole, or if it was from somewhere else. There's some theories that the police paid her off to give them the location, something like that. But regardless of how this money was obtained, it shows us that she too is a loser. And even though she's condemning the boys for their actions, she's kind of doing the same thing. So at the end of Loser Lover, they're seen driving off of a cliff, which is how this music video starts. During the day, before any of this drama happens, we can see that this particular scene takes place on the TV that Beomgyu later destroys, so it has to have happened before all of that. Now, this scene in Loser Lover is very interesting. First, it seems to be a reference to a film called Thelma and Louise, where they drive off the cliff at the end of the movie in order to hang on to their freedom, even as they are being pursued by cops and are essentially surrounded, which seems kind of familiar, doesn't it? But I do actually think that it was meant to emulate that feeling. It's supposed to show they're trying to hang on to their freedoms. They drive off and be free from everything, since we see them both wasting their money and driving away from Moa at this time because Moa's not in the vehicle with them. This scene actually continues in one of their VCRs where they drive off into the sky and then kind of come into it. Basically, it looks like Magic Island. It's the idea of imagination, however you want to interpret that, a dream. Basically, they're experiencing magic however you wish to interpret that. In my previous video explaining Loser Lover, I stated I believe they went to Magic Island, their dreams, their fantasies, and maybe that's so. It depends if you think it exists in this particular reality or not. Timeline. We need a name. Anyways, they experienced that childhood dream one last time before inevitably they fall. As the lyrics of the song suggest, they crash back down, like fallen angels even. If we want to look at the scene in a slightly more thematic sense, it does actually signal the death of the good boy, which, by the way, this song sings about constantly. Good boy, gone bad. They literally talk about killing their past selves. So that's the moment that it happened. But this is where Good Boy Gone Bad starts. It shows us the immediate death of the good boy. I think no matter how you choose to interpret that scene, I do think that it's supposed to show that death. They've killed off their innocence. And they've started to fall like we saw depicted in the Japanese version of 0 by 1 = Love Song. Moa sees the coverage of their adventure escapade and calls the police on them. Specifically, she also ignores several phone calls from Yeonjun. I'm guessing that she was meant to meet up with them, but instead she reveals the location that they go to, where they were supposed to meet up, to the police. Whoops. As a secondary fun note, as we see, because of the date on the phone, all of this actually happens on a Thursday. Of course, their last album in Korean was called Thursday's Child, but in the actual song, Thursday's Child has far to go. It talks about the best day to break up is a Thursday, and when you break up on a Thursday, it makes you a Thursday's child. So in terms of Moa betraying them in this way, I guess Thursday was really the kindest day to do it on, if you want to look at it that way. Kind. And actually, I just want to mention, this music video kind of plays out a little bit like the song opening sequence, like following the lyrics. It opens with the scene where you and I ended. It has several moments where it flashes back to show a faded film, the memories they once had, and even the fight that Yeonjun has with Moa could possibly be explained in these lyrics. I promised you the end of the world. Yeah, that's so cliche. Now, we don't know exactly if that's what you said, but I'm just saying, that's a potential for that conversation. Anyway, Moa's ignoring Yeonjun. Yeonjun's frustrated. He needs to meet with his friends. He drives to their hideout. This could also be, Subin's room, but I'm guessing it's specifically their hideout based on the location at the end of the video. It's in, some warehouse district, so hideout. Here there's a brief moment where I think maybe Subin tries to get rid of the money, etc, etc. But the important thing is that Yeonjun also needs to break into a different car. I'm guessing this is because their previous car was just on the news, seen flying off of a cliff. So he needs a different vehicle. It's too noticeable, I guess. And then they are driving to where they're supposed to meet Moa. I guess they're still maybe she just didn't answer her phone. Maybe she lost her phone. Maybe whatever. Whatever. They seem at least semi-optimistic. We do have that scene with Kai looking out the window, signifying loneliness, but we're not going to worry about that. But again, Moa was not answering their calls, and they get there, and they go to the roof where I assume that was where they were supposed to meet her. There's no one there. We see they're feeling a little lonely. And Subin looks very upset. We have the flashbacks where Moa was there with them in the past, but is no longer there. Instead, they're chased through the building by police that Moa called. Yeah. So they run away and return to their hideout, and they seem to be blaming maybe each other a little bit because there's high tension. Who called the police? And perhaps Bomgyu is being blamed here by Taeyeon, but it's also possible that Bomgyu suggested that Moa was the mole, and Taeyeon, who didn't get broken up with by Moa, pushes him because how could she do that? That is a betrayal. This is important, by the way, because there's actually only 3 people present when they are burning the money originally. Yeonjun, Subin, and Bomgyu. Kai is watching outside, and Taeyeon is in the bathroom at this point. He's not in this scene. By the way, I think this is, in fact, the same bathroom, so it's, potentially in this building, since this looks like the same place that Subin was flushing the money down during the daytime, so just, keep that in mind. Now, I believe that they're burning the money here to get rid of evidence, and perhaps it's a callback to 0 by 1 = Love Song, which, yes, I will still talk about that in a bit. But also, the burning of the money is potentially a way of showing us their loser selves. Either way, no matter what they're trying to do with this, it's too late. When the cops come to this location, Kai runs inside to warn their friends, barring the door to give them more time. Bomgyu manages to bike away, and Yeonjun makes it to the car. I assume they kind of all scattered in different directions, because Subin is caught at this point, and just like the song opening sequence says, he can see the times before the betrayal play out in front of his very eyes, in a moment where he sees Moa in front of him. It's a tragedy, tragedy, tragedy. But I'm detailing all of this because there are so many theories about someone who could have betrayed them besides Moa, and who called the police to that location. etc., etc. And yeah, I'm talking about Kai. But I think it's important to note that at this time, there are 3 people who could feasibly have called the police and alerted them to their location. The first, again, which earlier the music video blamed and is probably the most obvious answer, is Moa. She already told them about the meeting up place, the place on the roof where the police catch up to them first. So there's a chance she could have also told the police about this hideout here. It's likely that she knew about it. The second person who could have called the police here is, as everyone's favorite theory is, Kai. Some people believe that Kai seems to be waiting for the police outside of the building, and that for some reason the scene at the end where the lights are flashing on his face somehow proved this. I'm not completely sold on it. This particular examination of his character doesn't really make a lot of sense, since he does clearly block the door from the police to get in and give his friends time to escape, which does work, by the way, because out of the 4 people who were in that room, half of them escape. If he was working with the police, they wouldn't have escaped at all. There wouldn't have been any chase. So, again, there's probably, like, another entrance, another door. There was, like, the one door that Kai blocked, but then there's maybe, like, a back door somewhere. Of course, we do know that Kai's angelic white wings do eventually turn black in the Starseeker storyline. So, in theory, that might happen at some point for this alternate timeline as well, and people think this could be that moment, or that maybe he worked with Moa somehow since she came to talk to him already. But again, I do think that was the breakup scene. I mean, potentially that is the moment where Kai's blackening would have started, but to me, at the end, it kind of looks like he's resigned to his fate. He's like, oh, like, this is happening, like, there's nothing I can do. Maybe he's even seeing Subin getting arrested, because Subin's, like, getting, like, fought down by, like, 4 people. We assume he's somewhere near the police cars. It almost looks to me like he's kind of being surrounded by the police cars. I don't know. But yeah, at the very least, I'm assuming he can see Subin being captured and is just like, okay, well, I'm not getting away. It's not really clear if he is arrested or not, though. I mean, I'm just personally leaning towards him getting arrested. If only because I feel bad thinking that Subin is the only person who has the consequences for an action that he didn't even do. That man tried to flush money down the toilet, for goodness sake. A toilet! Speaking of the toilet, there is another person who had ample time to call the police and turn on them, and that is the person who sits in the toilet at the end. Well, not in the toilet, he's just in the bathroom, but it's Taeyeon. Taeyeon had plenty of time to potentially call the police here. As I said, he's hiding out in the bathroom. He's even on the phone, probably calling Moa, to be honest. Like, the way that it's edited, it shows the ring and he's on the phone. This is a broken promise segment. You know, maybe he was trying to call Moa and be like, hey, like, they're telling me that you've betrayed us. Please answer and tell me that you didn't. He didn't have a conversation with Moa, and so, at least not that we've seen. So how could she possibly have done that to us? We had a promise. They had a ring. I literally put this ring on just now, so I'm taking it back off because I don't feel like wearing a ring today. Anyway, but there's also the possibility that him and Beomgyu were actually blaming each other, and so he just was like, you know, maybe in the heat of the moment, he's like, fine, I'll call the police then, and he calls the police. I mean, that seems really petty, but I think it's a lot more possible than Kai calling the police here, at least in my opinion. But I don't actually think that either of those two called the police. I do think it was Moa. There's a lot of evidence pointing towards it being her. She has some motive, apparently. I mean, she called them at the beginning, so yeah, I think it was Moa who turned them in. Also, specifically because in the Korean version, we do see that Taeyeon is stomping on the promise ring box. I mean, it's just a ring box, but we can assume that it's the same ring that they are shown wearing in this music video. So, you know, the spirit for him being a good boy is dead and broken. I think that if Kai was the one who betrayed them, it would have been made a lot more obvious, or there would have been more direct clues, I think. Because here, there seems to be multiple ways to interpret. Because here, I feel like there's not so many that are very convincing for me personally. But I don't want to completely dismiss it because You never know. I do actually think that the blackening of his wings will happen later in the storyline, though. Like, something else will cause it. I have a feeling it has to do with them fighting, not specifically Moa. Although, I will say that as we saw it internally, even though his wings are black there, he's still standing with his friends. So that's just something else to consider. He's also standing apart from his friends, but I don't actually think that's because he betrayed them. I think that just shows the loneliness more, you know, the beta fish. This whole music video, by the way, it outlines the death of the ego, which Carl Jung defines as a fundamental transformation of the psyche. As in, it's necessary. This death can also signify a loss of a separate sense of self. So if you recall from the lyrics of 0 by 1 equals love song, it kind of feels like the boys themselves were singing about being very reliant on this other person, Moa, most likely you, their one and only. Here, though, they are losing that person, their other separate sense of self. Because you equals me. They said that in the Good Boy Gone Bad Korean version. In potentially the worst possible way. So they don't have their one and only anymore. And we know that this leads to the death of their good boy selves. Thus, the death of the ego. I just wanted to mention that for those of you who like philosophy and wondered if there was like a philosophical interpretation for this. Yes, there is. The answer is yes, always. Of course. Yes. Parallels. We see some pretty clear connections to 0 by 1 equals love song in this video. Like I mentioned before, we see Kai with the fish, the idea of driving in the car, and the burning of the money at the end. In my 0 by 1 equals love song explained video, I talked about how most of the music video happens in like a dream. Basically from the moment that Yeonjun leaves the house. It's like an imagined series of events meant to fill the void of loneliness, which is shown to us through Yeonjun watching the fish, which eventually ends up in the sky, and as I mentioned before, is a parallel to what Kai is seeing here. A difference, of course, being that in Yeonjun's case, he's seeing 5 fish, a representation of each of the members, and Kai only sees 1, loneliness. However, the road trip part of 0 by 1 is sort of similar to Good Boy Gone Bad. I mean, they're running from the cops. You can hear the siren. Perfect timing. So yes, this whole road trip idea is in this music video as well, kind of. Except here they're on the run instead of having a fun adventure and going to swimming pools or whatever. You know, they can't stop at a swimming pool and fool around and have fun until nighttime, like they'd once done in the Runaway music video, but they can't do that anymore. This is what Yeonjun is imagining them having fun and doing in 0 by 1 equals love song. But in Good Boy Gone Bad, the Japanese version, the only thing that they're running from is the law. And also they aren't burning things to keep warm like they are at the end and fend off the cold. They're literally burning things in order to absolve their guilt, I guess. But the parallel is there. He would like it to be that they're just trying to keep warm, but unfortunately, it's a little bit more dire than that. However, that's actually just one potential theory, for there are multiple ways that you can interpret this music video. That would be the, I guess, dream interpretation. The other is that 0 by 1 just shows an alternate ending, an alternate universe altogether, which apparently there's a lot of. The cat confirmed this in the webtoon, by the way. But maybe this shows a slightly better ending. I mean, slightly better ending. They went on one last hurrah of their childhood before they become adults, and they just never really got caught. I mean, they didn't necessarily steal money here. We don't see any money. And I mean, Moa never betrayed them. Moa's not even there. But of course, even if the betrayal didn't happen, the fact they are growing up still is a thing. They're still growing up. It still has to happen. Now, one of the main reasons for this second theory is because of Taeyeon's cast. Now, in Loser Lover, we see him fall and break his arm, and Moa will sign the cast, and in 0 by 1 equals love song, he is wearing that same cast. That cast is suspiciously missing from Good Boy Gone Bad. Maybe it's simply out of order, which takes us to the next kind of theory. It's one continuous storyline. Like, maybe this is a whole series of events. Maybe they meet Moa, he breaks his arm, and then the stuff from 0 by 1 equals love song kind of happens. They're kind of starting to, you know, they're trying to stay together as a group, but maybe not necessarily. maybe part of it is a dream. Then the events of Yeonjun stealing the money happen, and the breakup happens, you know, so it's all one continuous thing, and we're just seeing Kai remembering, yes, when we went on that road trip together or whatever, and like the fact that Yeonjun wakes up on his own at the end of 0 by 1 = Love Song could be that, like, he had taken the car again just by himself, and now his friends aren't with him, even though it's the same place. Was this an alternate universe? Was it a dream? Was it a whole series of events? Let me know which theory you think it is, because I don't think we can be totally sure at this point in time which one it is. I think there's some that are more likely. The dream interpretation is, I think, a lot of people will probably go for that one. It's the one that, obviously I presented it first, it's the one that I feel most strongly makes sense, but alternate timeline makes a lot of sense in my head too, and of course, like I said, there are ways to make it all flow into one timeline. So let me know which one of those you think it is. Okay, now finally we are at the part that you have been waiting for, that I have teased at in this entire video the whole time. The future. So as I mentioned before, Moa is seen going from a bright blue color to a kind of darker black cardigan, and then of course we are seeing her in complete black at the beginning of the music video. And I think that the shift in colors is extremely important, and it is the key to telling us the future of the Starseekers universe. Moa has previously actually been shown as a ghost in the Starseekers timeline, the remnants of a universe where TXT, or Star One, were unable to save her. And so she's been, you know, valiantly trying to save them to stop this from happening ever again in other universes. But she was always shown wearing white, a light color, and she always had, like I said before, that kind of like minty blue color. In previous comebacks, there were a lot of hints that Moa was supposed to save TXT. They're the ones to melt their frozen hearts, and she offers a hand to pull them from darkness. And yet, that's not what we're given here. At all. Even in 0 by 1 = Love Song, TXT are trying to warm up themselves, and no one is there to save them. So what happened? Now, I think this is actually a reference to what will happen in the other Starseeker storyline, and it'll likely be a theme for whatever the next Starseekers music video will be. In their Lovesick concert VCR, which was the most recent thing that we've seen in regards to the Starseekers storyline, there is a scene where Moa, who again has always been portrayed as a lovely, friendly, approachable ghost trying to save them, gets corrupted and turns into this, which looks like it walked straight out of a nightmare. But I don't think this is actually the first time that we've seen a dark Moa. For example, in the Magic Island music video, where it seems like they are getting caught in a rough situation, there are actually glimpses of two ghosts. There is one extremely difficult to spot moment where there is a Moa in white that we see kind of stepping away from the light. But on the much more noticeable side, which freaked a lot of people out when that music video came out, there is another girl standing there in a dark, what looks like school uniform. At the time, I kind of just assumed they were either all the same thing, or two counterparts to the same person, or were just perhaps like two opposing forces, and maybe they are? Or perhaps the white faded away and gave way to the black side, just like that VCR showed. In Magic Island, they were fooling around with fire, which seemed to disappear kind of inexplicably during that music video, potentially because of their previously mentioned ability where they can kind of rewind time like we saw in Runaway, although admittedly that hasn't really been mentioned too many times since then, except maybe in the lyrics of opening sequence where it talks about rewinding, but that also makes sense with... Anyways, either way, after they set basically the whole forest on fire, I don't know, it's fine. It's gone. They don't have any consequences for that. Much like the state that the boys were in Loser Lover, they thought that they escaped to freedom without consequence. Until they don't. The world around them catches fire, seemingly very suddenly. I've actually previously talked about how this fire isn't only a fire, but it also represents negative emotions. Their anger, hatred, and distress. And also potentially that this Moa, the darker one, might have been the one to set the forest on fire yet again. Yay! So in a way, that music video is actually showing the same thing that's happening here, right now. But this time we are actively seeing who causes this situation. Moa, calling the police. And the person who's at fault for it, Yeonjun, although debatably Beomgyu's the one to throw the fire in, but anyways. And actually, all of those things have previously been shown in that era and eras that followed it. Yeonjun has been guilty since the Eternity album. This is actually not Instagram, by the way. This is a concept image made to look like Instagram. You can find it on the Big Hit website. And yeah, so Yeonjun has been guilty of doing things that are questionable for a very long time. So to me, what we're seeing here is a perfect parallel for what we're going to see coming in the Starseekers universe. There have always been these little hints into it, but now I think we kind of have context for it. TXT, mostly because of Yeonjun's actions, whether it be him stealing money, cheating, or, you know, making questionable contracts with the cat to unlock your magic early, causes problems for the whole group. But actually, the roles that we see the members take in this music video have been shown to us before too. They actually fit the roles that TXT were assigned in the Frost music video based on those cards. By the way, you can watch my Frost explained video by clicking the card. So let's just really quickly go over these cards and how it connects to the characters in this alternate timeline as well, because again, it connects very, very well. Subin, like his curse to forever see a destroyed future in the Starseekers, is the sole person to directly see the consequences here, probably. As he gets arrested, his card says, "There's something I have to endure alone for eternity." Kai, who has accepted his fate and looks steadfastly into the future, says, "I have no choice but to believe, even if we crash down." Bomgyu, who ends the music video crashed down and has been separated from his friends after fighting, has nothing to do but cling to hope. Not even darkness lasts forever. Taeyeon, our forever lover, who is struggling to let go of Moa and can't believe in their betrayal, is trying to find a way to make both the loser and the lover work together. His card says, "If only I could find the answer, I would give you my everything." And finally, Yeonjun, whose card you remember from the Frost music video, who has made his mistakes and wants to find a way to rectify the situation, to right the wrongs that he has committed. His card says, "What started with me must end with me." So, they do have to go through darkness. It's a part of growing up, leaving things behind, feeling an empty hole, like the quote at the beginning of the 0x1 = Love Song music video, filling it with something that later hurts you. In the Starseekers, I imagine we will see Moa, or at least a version of Moa, turn their backs on the boys, burn them in a terrible act of betrayal after everyone, especially Subin, who can see them, put their hope in her help. I imagine that will cause a lot of chaos. And just like this music video, it will separate the boys. If TXT are following along with the hero's journey, I assume this would be like the part at the bottom where they're like, yeah, this is the worst, the lowest point that we can get. But then they have to find themselves again, right? And I believe we already know the quests that they're going to face in the future, that they have to go through. Because we were kind of told that in the Frost music video, and it's related to their true names, which all of the cards I just read were also related to their true names, which just means that that's part of their personality a little bit. So yeah, my prediction for the next TXT Starseekers music video is that they are going to have a similar betrayal. They're going to fall into this kind of bottom of the hero's journey, bottom of the barrel feeling, despair, loss of all hope, grief, regret, anguish. What other synonyms are there? But all those negative emotions will be at their peak. It'll be that fire. But all of these things are cyclical. As I talked about in my video on the Korean version of Good Boy Gone Bad, the whole album for Thursday's Child kind of takes you through the movements of grief, just like the cycle of a week. Which, again, takes us back to Thursday's Child has far to go. We can see, after everything, that Thursday was the best day for them to go through this breakup. After all, they still have Friday to feel sad and angry, Saturday to pull themselves together, and still leaves the whole day on Sunday to have fun and smile once again. And then just a reminder for those of you who feel like they're the ones on a Thursday, the Sunday might seem far away, but just like the days of the week, it will come again. And hopefully TXT will be there to go through it with us, whether it be in the alternate universe that I still need a name for, or the Starseekers one. Well, that's it. You have made it to the end of this video, and that, first of all, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I really appreciate you. You are like my secret sunflower audience. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so that YouTube tells you every single time I post a video. All of my social media is linked in the description down below, and I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. If you want to join my Patreon, the link is in the description down below. As it is, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sunny, everyone. Bye! Also, fun fact, since I couldn't seem to fit this into any other part of this music video explained thing, and I just wanted to mention it because a lot of people commented on these things on my reaction. So Subin has like a tattoo cut on his neck, which is symbolic of him being taken down, I think. But also it matches with Yeonjun's cut on his neck that we see in like Nap of a Star. And I think it's kind of mentioning that, yeah, they kind of switched roles. In the song Can't We Just Leave the Monster Alive, they talk about swapping roles. So yeah, I think it's on his neck here, specifically because he's the one who takes the fall here. He's the one who gets the cut, even though it was Yeonjun's actions. He also has a bear tattoo on his shoulder, which is reminiscent of the bear from Runaway. Which sort of symbolize their pain and struggles as they grow up. Again, it's on Subin, who gets arrested for sure at the end, showing that loss of innocence, the fact that he has to grow up and take the brunt of the consequences for his friends. I just wanted to mention that. I don't know, maybe I could have fit it in the video, but that's just a bonus for watching to the end. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you later. Bye.